So, the past couple months have been leading up to me custom designing and building these three items. We have a custom thermal printer. It has a touchscreen interface. It's a very basic UI for the moment. Underneath the logo will be an RFID reader that I have yet to install. It's got a power switch. The housing has an electronic lock, so you can access the paper. Once you have the RFID on it, you'll be able to ensure that only authorized people are accessing it. Once it reconnects to the network, it should acknowledge that it is locked. So right now all three of these items are connected to each other through this base station. The base station handles wireless communication using an NRF module. Its system will also be capable of running on Wi-Fi, but the main client wanted something isolated, and then on board we have Ethernet, and that Ethernet will go to the server that is to be built, and then everything can talk over MQTT. And then we have a barcode scanner. The base station also handles the charging for the scanner. Right now it's a very basic screen UI. The border is colored to let me know if a device is online or offline. This rotary encoder just changes color when you rotate the knob. It also has a push button, but it doesn't do anything at the moment. The plan is that you'll be able to cycle through the available devices that are configured to it and see status information, if it's being used, how much power it has. And then using the encoder, you would go through those menus, and then using the push button would allow you to recall a scanner. The scanners have speakers in them, so you'd be able to listen for the beep and go find it if it's laying around the office. And then the main purpose of this whole system is for inventory management. And the use case is somewhat unique, which is why it's all custom to suit the metrics and the use case of the client. So one of the things the printer does is it creates, you'll see a Wi-Fi logo there. This Wi-Fi logo is when it's connected to a Wi-Fi network. This one is the access point that the internal microcontroller is creating. If something's connected to it, it turns blue. And what it generates is a website. And that website lets you fill in information for a donor that is dropping off items to the charity. Normally, the donor is given a code to fill in by hand, but then that has to get transferred to a computer, and it's a lot of manual work. So instead, the website allows them to input their information, and a nice receipt can be made, and it generates a QR code. That QR code is what the system is capable of recognizing. And then a lot of the items are vast and unique and such, but they tend to be able to fit into various categories. So instead of trying to keep a huge database of UPC codes, and not every item comes with a UPC code, we can classify things in categories, assign lookup values for them, and assign them an average value of how much the item might be worth. Anything that might be outside that realm, you could manually input a price point as well. But with these tags, which are printed from the printer, the QR code encodes the information for the system to know what an item is. So if you pick up a scanner, so the scanner actually has a sensor in the handle. It does still need some tuning, but it does work. It turns itself on. We can see that we're connected to the network. We can see that the battery is at 94% currently. Underneath that little window, underneath the logo, is actually a light sensor. Once more complete firmware is built, the screen brightness will be tied to brightness in the room. I'll also be looking at making both a light mode and a dark mode on the screen to make it more visible in various environments. And then the logo is embossed into the 3D print. Some of the 3D prints do need some tuning, but for demonstration purposes, everything did work. So the main client uses RFID codes. These particular codes are not used directly by the client. These are sample codes that I'm testing with. And I've designated various ones with different levels of user access. But I'll just use this one here, which is labeled IT, and that is your main ID. Now this is going to be hard. I have to keep the screen active. So now that I have it logged in, I just had to tap it over top of that logo. It's giving me various menu options. Depending which user you use to log in, gives you various options. Settings currently doesn't actually do anything for a demonstration. But if we go to print tag, what's a tag I don't actually have? Let's go to books and collect book, and it prints a new tag. It does it all wirelessly. And because I'm not touching the scanner, it turns back off. If I leave it for a certain amount of time, it'll actually log out. I can go back. Now, if I want to input a new donation, I could click sign in, and it wants me to scan a donor code. So, it beeps and vibrates and flashes the lights when it has a successful scan. The reason for adding all of that is for general accessibility, so if you're hearing impaired, sight impaired, or combination, or any other reason, hopefully the combination of those items can make it more accessible for people. It's now shown the name of the donor and added a button so I can click the next, and then this is when you would go along and scan items to add to a donation, and once you were done, you would just click done, and that'd be it, and then the system would know you have new inventory. And then if a staff member wants to take items that have been donated, they would click sign out, and it starts with this menu, asking who it's for. So this charity helps family and youths. So let's say it's for a youth. Oh, I double clicked. Let me just click done. Sign out. Okay, so click youth, and then it wants to know if you've already collected items for this person. Let's just say no, I haven't. The reason for those two questions is now we can collect metrics on how many people have been helped, which helps for donor accountability reports and such. But by asking those two generic questions, it keeps any confidential or client information away from the system and just gives everything better security. So now all you'd have to do is, as you're taking things, you just scan them, and that'd be all you'd need to do. and it would, on the server side, subtract from your overall items. And if we plug it into the base station, because I was holding the scanner, it won't immediately turn on the power. Turns on the power. The moment you go to pick up the scanner, it kills the power. And then I can put it back in. So it knows the scanner's there because the color has changed. But it knows it's being touched. So it waits till it's not being touched, waits a period, and then turns on the power for charging. So that's the overview of what's been made. There'll be, of course, lots more to go into it. And now that I've had my meeting, I can start working on production code and getting the few other items put together. But it's definitely been a fun and rewarding project.